Good morning from Sugar City Studios in beautiful, historic Savannah, Georgia. Johnson Square. Beautiful day in Savannah. North Point of View podcast. Dr. Walter Kimsey. Good morning.
Morning, Mark.
How are you, man?
I'm great.
North Point of View podcast, or as our friend from the Alabama Horse Authority called us, frickin' Frack?
Yeah.
Podcast?
Yeah, but I don't know whether I'm Frick or Frack.
You freaking kidding me? We could talk about fracking.
Exactly.
Oil, right? I don't know. No names to be mentioned, but I think of somebody at the Port Authority, might have even been the COO. But anyway, not going to name her name.
No, that's true. But you know what? That means we're multi-state now.
Oh, we grew.
Yes.
In the last 15 minutes. From multi-county to multi-state. Hey, great being with you. All right, so infrastructure spending.
Yeah.
There's a big bill, right, that's being hammered back and forth. Obviously, well, it seems to me obvious that we've got some national infrastructure issues. Story from Memphis, the I-40 closure, the bridge there over the Mississippi River in Memphis. Great city, Memphis.
Uh-huh. Well, we both lived there.
Yeah, and going back soon.
Mm-hmm.
So the need for an infrastructure spending plan, right? And then the impact on economic growth.
Right. So let's talk about that bill for just a moment.
Okay.
First thing is there's what is infrastructure? And
roads, bridges, dams.
Exactly. Right? But it's more than just that. Infrastructure is anything without which the economy cannot operate and continue to grow. So that includes, things like language. You need to have we all have to agree on grammar, on syntax, on letters, on symbols, what these things mean, so we can, store our knowledge and use it and then pass it down to the next generations.
Right.
So schools are an important part of infrastructure.
Okay.
So are prisons, so are policemen, so are teachers. So that bill that is currently being debated.
And we're not just talking about the buildings, right?
Exactly.
We're talking about the human.
Yeah, the whole thing.
Infrastructure.
Exactly. Now, the part we care about, because we work in industrial real estate, is the physical transportation infrastructure. So we'll leave the electricity alone,
right?
Although that needs some serious upgrading, as we learned in Texas.
And some protection, right?
Exactly.
Not even going to get into the cybersecurity right now, but that's
precisely
a whole other deal.
Right.
Okay.
So we've got water in this country. I don't think there's a single state that meets the 1970 Clean Water Act standards. So that has to be cleaned up. Places like Michigan, New Jersey have lead in the school water for the kids.
Right.
So anyway, that's an important part of infrastructure spending, but I'm going to focus on the transportation part. And one thing that really aggravates me is the way people describe our transportation infrastructure. And they said it's in terrible shape, it's crap, pardon the language, okay, the answer, that's not true. You have to be very careful not to stereotype stuff. In the older parts of the country, like New York, where they've built infrastructure, bridges that are over 100 years old, etc. Yeah, that stuff has to be replaced. When you build something like a bridge or a road, you give it a 50-year cycle, and at 25 years you do a major inspection to see how much damage the weather has done to the structure. You maybe do some repairs. At 50 years, you see if you have to tear it down or if you can still eke another 25 years out of it. But once you hit about 75 years, it's done.
Well, in terms of infrastructure, I didn't think about the bridge here. The size of the ships has increased dramatically over the last 20 years. And so, there's a lot of components to that.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and you look at a country. I mean, I've been out to, out in the sticks in Kansas and Missouri. They've got great roads, great bridges. It looks terrific there. But that stuff is much newer than the stuff that was built on the East Coast and the big urban areas. And so that definitely, those things need to be replaced. They're not in good shape at all. They just replaced one bridge in New York and they've got more work to do. But in Georgia, most of our infrastructure is very new. So
Yeah, look at what's going on right now, the interstate system.
exactly.
Every other interchange within 3 counties is being upgraded right now.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, and then of course, if you look at the rest of the East Coast, North Carolina, South Carolina, Virginia, they could use some serious, upgrades to their roads.
Yeah.
As we all know. So this is an important thing what's going on. If you look at the period during the heavy interstate system construction from the 1960s to the 1970s, 80s, there is, and I read a very interesting analysis done by an economist. There's no exact perfect data to do this, but he used a lot of correlations, and I think the conclusion was that this contributed to productivity growth about 0.6%. When you look at GDP growth, there's two things that drive GDP: people and the stuff they make. If you have more people and they make more stuff, that's how GDP grows, with more people. Or if each person becomes more productive, that's another way you grow. And his claim was that the productivity growth was boosted by 0.6% over that time period. So right now, GDP growth, if was running around 2% before we got into the pandemic. Coming out, the forecast would be for 2%. But if this economist is right, then we're looking at 2.6% growth for 3, 4, 5 years, or as long as we're really emphasizing replacing and building infrastructure.
So it's got a long-term impact. It's not just about jobs today. It's creating, sort of a shot in the arm. This is something that could have a 10-year or longer ripple effect.
Exactly. And so if you take that, we talked about the introduction of 5G and quantum computing a little while ago. If you take those two things and you impose it on your economic projections, instead of a roughly 2% growth rate as the consensus is for the next 10 years, you're looking at potentially well north of 3%.
Wow.
But what's really important, though, is to make sure that the infrastructure we build now is not the same thing as what they do in New Jersey. In New Jersey, with the harsh winter, every couple of years they strip the highways, like Highway 78 coming from Pennsylvania into New York. I used to live nearby there. And they every 2 years strip it and then repave it, the same pavement. Okay. Now, the traffic, there's more and more people there. The traffic got more and more congested. I was only too happy to leave. And in California, they as more people moved into the area, they put more access points to the highways, and their highways soon suffered a lot of congestion. And in order to solve the problem, they built additional highway lanes, but they ran out of space to build it, and the congestion remained.
Right.
How did they fix it? They fixed it with variable speed limits. And it's something that I think we're going to start seeing in Florida, in the Orlando area very soon, because they too have a problem. So when you have entry and exit ramps into highways that are too close together, you have traffic trying to move from the left lanes into the right lanes to slow down and get off on the ramp. And
I-16 in Savannah.
Exactly. And the same thing on the other side. So if you put too many ramps in there, too close together, like in Orlando, I think it's like 0.9 miles from the Disney ramp to the something studios. So you don't fix it by adding lanes. You fix it by making the cars on the right side. You put a variable speed limit with digital speed limit signs, and the ones on the right, they slow the traffic down once you get this clumping.
Yeah, because there's got to be like 20 lanes there, and it's the biggest traffic bottleneck in the Southeast.
Right. And there's always going to be that guy who was in the 6th lane from the ramp, about a quarter mile going, oh, crud, I got to get off here. And starts cutting people off. Everybody's stepping on their brakes. And, that has to be included, this technology.
So, so it was a little bit like our quantum computers, the technology podcast that we did earlier. So infrastructure.
Smart infrastructure.
So don't just spend the money to make people in an area feel good that they got some money, they got some projects, they got some people back to work. Let's be smart about it and really take advantage of a windfall for the next decade or so.
Exactly. We could amplify the windfall.
I'm going to go to Coach Kim Z's rather than Dr. Kim Z's. Hey, man, thanks. Always good. Be with you.
Yep.
Thanks, folks, for listening to the North Point of View podcast, also known in parts of Alabama as the Frick and Frack podcast. We got to figure out who's Frick and who's Frack.
Exactly.
Right? Hey, man, thanks. Good to be with you.
Take care, buddy.
All right, see ya.